Hello guys, it's Odilina of A Thursday Cars and I am bringing you guys another video. Just as the title suggests, I'm going to be telling you guys 5 really cool driving practices that could kill. You heard that right. So there's quite a wide range of habits to be seen in drivers and generally people riding in a car. Some like to eat while driving, some like to pray while driving, some like to think while driving, some like to cook while driving. There are just so many practices to be seen in drivers and generally people riding in vehicles. But I'm going to be talking about just these 5 because they seem cool but they really aren't. And I've arranged them in increasing order of severity. So I'm going to be counting down from 5 to 1, which means that the most dangerous one is going to be at number 1. And with that said, let's get things going. Number 5 is driving with earphones on. I mean, that can be so cool, right? Who wouldn't want to be completely immersed in that wonderful sound experience while driving? I've just spent $540 on my Blue AirPod Max. So bro, I'm gonna be eating with this thing, cooking with this thing, sleeping with this thing, and driving with this thing. It's a no-brainer how risky it is driving with earphones on. Driving is an activity where you should be in constant communication with your car and your environment. So if you have your earphones on, you hardly hear what sound your car is making, what warning chime is giving, and what is happening around your environment. For instance, I've heard of traffic jam robberies where drivers will then have to turn off their vehicles, turn off the lights, and either lay still in the vehicle or lock the cars and run away. So in the case of such unfortunate events, you might still be in your car with your engine running, your lights on, maybe if it's in the night, and probably even dancing to your song and attracting more attention to yourself, because now you are too immersed in your music experience to maybe hear gunshots or read a chaotic atmosphere. And even if you finally do, trust me, you must have lost some precious seconds of reaction time, and this might be detrimental to your safety. Also, when you're on earphones, it will be more difficult for you to hear when your car starts making funny sounds that need to be checked ASAP. As a matter of fact, it might just be safer to play loud music from your car stereo than soft music from your earphones. Because now, this will be your ears hearing loud music and maybe other sounds as opposed to soft music and nothing else. Okay, I'm not encouraging playing loud music in your car like Kalu. I'm just trying to see how dangerous it would be driving while having earphones on. Number 4 is driving with your shoes off. I know what you're saying now. Is this guy crazy? Alright, just hear me out. There's actually no problem with driving with your shoes off. The issue is taking off your shoes and leaving them in the footwell. Yeah, you see where I'm going to now, right? You might have heard about pedals getting jammed in compromising positions. For instance, your accelerator pedal getting stuck in its fully open position or your brake pedal getting stuck in its closed position. Basically, what this means is that your accelerator pedal is not coming back up even when you're not depressing it, so your car is just accelerating on its own and out of control. Or you go to depress your brake pedal to stop your vehicle and it's not going down, very likely because something is blocking it from behind and now you can't stop your car again. The 2 most major culprits I know are shoes and water bottles, but then I think it's worse for shoes because most cars have cup holders for keeping cups and bottles, so you most likely be keeping your bottles there after all. But cars don't come with shoe holders, so you very likely just leave them roaming about in your footwell. And then they'll find their way to where they can interfere with your pedals. So imagine a scenario where you have to make an emergency stop and you're trying to walk your way to the brake pedal, but your shoe gets in your way. Or you get to the brake pedal, but it's just not going down because your shoe is blocking it from behind. Therefore, I advise that if you take off your shoes to drive, try to move them to the passenger footwell or you send them to the back so that your Italian leather or your Mount Everest challenging high heel doesn't draw your curtain. Number 3 is placing objects on your airbag cover. Strange, right? I'll explain to you. So just a brief refresher on what the airbag is. The airbag is a safety feature in modern cars that deploys during a crash or a serious collision to protect the occupant from striking the hard interior parts of the vehicle. It usually deploys very quickly and with so much force that whenever I talk to people about airbags, I always like to remind them that the dashboard doesn't tear for the airbag to come out. Rather, the airbag tears the dashboard open. So imagine what force it is deploying with for it to be able to tear a dashboard open. I've added some videos for us to see and understand how serious airbag deployments can be. First of all, you can see the warning in this video that says airbags contain highly explosive charges. That's because they really do. The deployment of an airbag is as a result of an actual explosion that goes on in the airbag module, So this thing deploys with so much force. So I get really concerned when I see people put items on their airbag cover. Some just put cups on it, maybe temporarily, but some stick items on it, some stick air fresheners, some stick ornaments. But the most common one I've seen people do is crucifix. I've seen a lot of people stick crosses on their airbag covers. But the reality of this whole thing is that if the airbag deploys, whatever the object is, it becomes a projectile because of the force the airbag uses to deploy, it sends that item flying into the face of whoever is seated on that seat. And they can maim the occupant for life or even kill them. I'm thinking it's ignorance of how dangerous the act is, but I wish I can get more people to understand that airbag area is best left empty and undecorated. And I think that point is further driven home by the fact that by regulation, automakers are mandated to label wherever an airbag is in the vehicle. And this is done to let the occupant know where in the vehicle there is an airbag so that he or she might be mindful of that area. Some vehicles have a definite marked out section for the airbag like this one, while some others don't have. They just have a small script saying SRS airbag like this one. If the former is the case, it's much easier because now you know exactly what area to avoid. But in the case where a definite area is not marked out, maybe there is just a writing saying SRS airbag somewhere, then I would advise you just try and be mindful of that entire section of the dashboard. Not scared, but mindful, because the aim of this post is to bring knowledge, not to instill fear. After all, the airbag is a safety feature and it will really keep you safe if used correctly. By the way, airbags are now a mandatory safety requirement in the US now. So you can't sell a new car in the US now without airbags. That's to show you how important airbags are in occupant protection. But I've seen people put crosses, I've seen people put LED lights, I've seen people put flowers. Some even use dashboard cover to cover the entire area of the airbag. In fact, on my way out to put together my script for this video, I came across this Toyota Corolla. You see, this car has airbag. It has an airbag on the dashboard, but see how decorated the dashboard is. And the airbag is completely covered now with dashboard cover and flowers. To be honest, I don't have concrete evidence yet that supports how interfering dashboard mats can be to an airbag's operation. But seeing how violently an airbag deploys, and then seeing the normal Corolla dashboard and where the airbag is placed, and now seeing this one with dashboard cover over the airbag, I can only imagine that the result will not be nice. And now here's another video to show you how careful you need to be with an airbag. Two key takeaways from this video are: first, how quickly the airbag deployed, and second, what it did to the hammer. So you can see how the airbag has flung the hammer halfway out of the windshield. So that's exactly what an airbag does to whatever is placed in this path. So imagine putting a cross between you and your airbag, or an air freshener between you and your airbag, or precious stones between you and your airbag. Like, look at this person now who has decorated their steering airbag cover with stones and they think it's cool. But then look at the post title that calls them the new age idiots who want suicide by airbag. And that's because that's just what it could be. Anything that is placed in the path of a deploying airbag simply becomes a projectile. So these stones now, when the airbags deploy, it might send stones flying into the face of whoever is driving the vehicle. So I say this once again, please try to not put any object on your airbag cover. Anyway, I've said so much about airbag now, but that might just be a theme because the next 2 points, and which are the last 2 points in this video, will all have something to do with airbags. We'll see how. So our first runner-up for the position of most dangerous, our number 2, is driving with a child on your laps. I know what you're thinking now. They don't finally catch my dad. Because yes, of course, our parents do it very well, especially when they carry our last sibling on their laps while driving. It looks like a very lovable thing to do, but let me tell you the dangers of doing so. First is the danger to all occupants and the vehicle in general. So you know, children can be very curious and inquisitive. A child might be seeing you drive a car and be seeing how you are turning the steering, and they just think you are just doing it. They don't know that you are doing it with precision and calculation. Then one day the child gets the opportunity of being in the driver's seat, maybe by virtue of being on your laps while you are driving. When an opportunity presents itself, the child might just innocently turn the steering wheel because that's what they've been seeing you do. Now imagine if this happens on high speed, because you know the faster you go, the more significant your steering input is. So the same amount of turn you give your steering wheel to dodge a pothole when driving at maybe 20 km per hour might be enough to cause an accident when driving at 80 km per hour on the highway. But guess who doesn't know this? The child. So they could just turn the steering innocently and then put the vehicle in a rollover accident. You might be able to correct and discipline the child for doing that too, but that might be in heaven or in hell depending on your actions on earth. And it gets worse because they say children are innocent and so might not face judgment. So imagine burning in hell while the person that caused your death is in heaven.
No! God, please, no! No!
Also, when driving with a child on your lap, you tend to be less accurate because other than focusing majorly on your driving, you are now having to focus on the child you're carrying and making sure they are not touching things you don't want them to touch, and that's divided attention. Then second, and as fatal, is the danger to the child because they are now in the direct path of the airbag. So if for any reason you get into a collision, maybe because you are distracted by the presence of the child, and the crash doesn't kill the child, the airbag most likely will. As a matter of fact, automakers usually put a warning in their sun visor stating clearly that children 12 years and below can be seriously injured or killed by the airbag. They even go ahead to say that the back seat is the safest place for children. And it's true, some newer vehicles now come with advanced airbags, and what this does is that it uses sensors on the seats to detect the size of the occupant. So when it uses this data to calculate the size of the occupant and it detects that it's a child that is sitting on the front seat, it then triggers the airbag to not inflate at full power and to full size because it's going to be risky for that child. So that's just like an extra layer of safety for children who, for some reason, are in the front seat. But then I imagine that this feature should only be available for the front passenger seat and not the driver's seat, because what should a child be doing in the driver's seat at the first place? And even if the driver's seat does have that feature, remember the system gets data from sensors that measure the size of the occupant on the seat. So even though you are carrying a child, you are still the one sitting on the seat. So the sensors take a measurement and then feed to the system that the occupant is an adult, because it doesn't know that between you and the airbag there is a child that you want to kill. And so it allows the airbag to continue being prepared to deploy at full power in the case of a crash. I know we love our children, so please let's not risk their lives. I particularly like this post that says, "This is not love, stop it." And with that said, let's stop driving while carrying children. Number one is the most dangerous, but unfortunately the most frequently committed, and that's riding without your seatbelt on. But very contrary to the title, this one is not cool. In my opinion, seatbelt is the greatest life-saving feature of an automobile. And yes, technology has developed well enough to bring so many features now, like adaptive cruise control, which keeps you at a safe distance from the vehicle in front of you, lane keeping and lane departure warning, lane keeping assist, which help you steer your vehicle back in lane. There are just so many features now. Even attention assist that monitors the driver's alertness while driving and suggests when to take a break. Like, there are just so many developed safety features in automobiles now, but I don't think any of them is as important as seatbelt, despite how basic seatbelt is. There are two main things your seatbelt does in keeping you alive. First of all, it keeps you in your seat and prevents you from flying around in the vehicle during a crash, or even in the worst case scenario, from being ejected from the vehicle. Then secondly, it keeps you from running into the path of an inflating airbag, which is very important for your safety. And I know some people say it's stressful and fussy using seatbelt because you get into your car, you buckle your belt, then maybe you just drive to the filling station and you have to come down now, so you have to unfasten the belt again. Then when you get back into the car, you have to fasten the belt. And I know people say that, but believe me, it's worth it when you realize how much you're trying to save your life here. I have added this video to show you how a seatbelt saves your life. You can see that in the first video where the dummy is unrestrained and without an airbag, it just flies straight into the steering and other hard parts of the interior. Like, even the head smashed the glass and you can see shards of glass spreading from the outside of the vehicle. In a real life scenario, this will very likely lead to death because now we are having chest trauma and head trauma, and you know how very important organs are in our chest and our head regions. But notice in the second frame how the seatbelt kept the dummy back in its seat, despite the fact that the airbag is there now and the airbag deployed, but the seatbelt just kept the dummy back in its seat. That's why the seatbelt is very important in saving life. The airbag is there to make sure that if you fly out of your seat, you won't strike the hard parts of the interior. But the seatbelt is there to make sure that you won't even fly out of your seat in the first place. That's why I keep telling people that the seatbelt is more important than the airbag, because despite the fact that they work best together, without the seatbelt, the airbag could kill you, but without the airbag, the seatbelt will still save you. The one important role of the seatbelt is to keep you away from an inflating airbag, because the whole system is designed to work in a way that you are supposed to be thrown into an inflated airbag and not an inflating airbag. Reason being, Like I've mentioned several in this video, the airbag, despite being a safety feature, can be catastrophic if stuff is not done well. And just for reference, I pull up the story of this lady who has lost an eye to an airbag incident. The story has it that her airbag deployed late, so I'm not trying to say she wasn't wearing her seatbelt or that she defaulted or something. In fact, she even had her seatbelt on, as we can see in this narration where she says her seatbelt saved her. I'm just trying to point out how dangerous an airbag can be if something doesn't go well. And to a very large extent, the seatbelt prevents just that. Look at this airbag warning light from Volkswagen. I believe they could have just drawn the silhouette of an airbag, but they chose to draw the silhouette of an airbag and then someone who has the seatbelt fastened. I guess that is to tell you that the airbag is meant to work together with seatbelt. So I'm not anti-airbag, or I don't intend to offend the airbag fanboys, but have you seen how other safety features are designed to work together with the seatbelt, while the seatbelt is designed to be able to work alone? But I guess some of us don't rate it because it's always there and it's just basic in design and it's just a belt. Also, we think when you realize how important a seatbelt is in saving your life, you will never want to ride in a vehicle again without fastening your seatbelt. I personally, I always fasten my seatbelt. Even before I drive, before I shift the gear, I fasten my seatbelt. It's now a part of me because I know how important it is. Aside the safety benefits, it gives me this feeling of having full control of the car whenever I'm driving. You know, just like a racing harness, it keeps me in place and makes me think, okay, yes, I am in charge of this. Some also say they don't like using seatbelt because it stains their cloth. Truly, seatbelt can get dusty sometimes if you don't clean it. But I mean, what's your clothes compared to your life? So let's all learn to always fasten our seatbelts whenever we're riding in a vehicle to reduce the chances of serious injury or death in the event of a crash. I know nobody's praying for such occurrence, but can we be realistic a little? Anyway, that brings us to the end of this video. 5 really cool driving practices that could kill. And yeah, if you have contributions, opinions, and comments, kindly drop them in the comment section. I'll be very willing to take them. See you on another video.